At least it's not what I thought it was.
I was thinking like a cosmic like wavy effect. That's what I was saying.
like this. I've been in this platform since 2018, so.
I think I don't remember when I first started, but I took a long break.
Mine was 2022 because I was only invited by a friend to join a group, so
I guess 6 minutes.
I never joined VR until someone invited me.
They don't have football
I was
right now.
into VR before I went to college, but then I took a break after.
Yeah, 2018 to 2020, I was PC mode. Then 2020 onward, I got a VR Quest 2. That was before the big rebrand from Meta. It still got the Oculus shit on it.
I had the original HTC Vive, and then I had the Index, and now I have a Quest Pro with Index controllers.
Good luck.
It's day one.
Yeah, true. There's still
It's day one shit, so...
True, though.
Oh. Oh, there's collision up here. Oh. I thought I was the first person to find this.
Quite so much because I have a story to tell, and the reason why I'm here for all of you to come in here. So let me start you off with a dream. My dream is to basically have everyone just be around and express themselves more than just their avatars, but also their own clothing. You know, it's something for everyone to try out and use. Sometimes I wonder what's going on in the good old marketplace because, you know, sometimes we always see that, well, a lot of the popular stuff is just techwear or comfy or sexy, and I get it. I get it why it's pretty much popular. But, you know, I'm here to just want create variety for everyone. Variety for people to express themselves more. And we'll get more into that. You know, I was inspired by this game called The World Ends With You. And The World Ends With You is basically you know, where's the dark academia? Where's the Eastern style of clothing? Where's the cutesy pastel? Where's everything cute. In fact, I've noticed, where's the emo girl? Where's the skater boy? Where's the punk rock? In fact, I'm noticing something that's completely missing. Where's the Barbie girl? Anyway, I hope that woke you all up, because welcome. I'm gonna introduce myself again. Hi, I'm Wishstream. I'm a senior 3D artist for a couple of games already, 5 AAA games. I work for Ocritas, and I also recently just opened my own shop called Mirror Wish here in Ferality. Anyways, welcome officially to Suiting Up, how to make clothes for avatars. Now, to make things easier, this talk is designed to be beginner-friendly and very accessible for people. That means everything that I'm going to demonstrate today won't be using the industry standard. So everything is free, everything's accessible, you can download this right now, and of course use it as well. Now, this talk is also designed to be very practical. The concepts will be very simplified to sacrifice accuracy for understanding. And of course, I will be giving a start point and end point. I will mention right now that we do have a Discord for Ferality, and you can ask me questions right over there that we will be answering at the end of this talk. All right. So, are you ready? Are you sure? All right. All right. So let's focus on making clothes. This does mean that we're not focusing on Unity. I know it's a little sad, but sadly that's all the time I have. So this was a very popular choice that was from last year, so I figured I'd bring this back. So we get to choose your own difficulty if you're completely new to making clothes, or if you're a creator like me. So let's start with everyone. Of course, for those who don't know much, I will give you the absolute basics of everything. Casual, for those people who are willing to put in a little bit of time. And of course, dedicated, people who have full control of the process. And after all of that, we're going to do a quick recap from start to finish, so everyone doesn't get lost. All right, so everyone starts somewhere. This is my advice for everyone who is coming in to this talk or just trying to make their clothes on their own. You just gotta do it. And fail often. Very important. Fail often, because that's how you start to learn. Because like, even if you're a perfectionist, you need to settle to good enough and find out the spots that you are having faults with. Because admittingly, the way I learned my way of 3D modeling is that I often failed a lot and I didn't focus on perfectionism. And the more you do it, the more faster you go. All right, so let's start with everyone. Easy, the simple and easy, and you'd be surprised how easy this could be. So how do we start? How do we start making clothes? Well, first of all, we start with painting with the body. You'd be surprised how effective this would be. It's the simple concept of basically taking your textures of your own avatar and then simply painting on top of it. Painting your outfit on top of it. And I watched this VTuber a couple of days ago. Their name is Harvey, and they were trying to pretend to be Andre, on the one on the left. And basically what happened on their stream is that they textured themselves to be exactly like Andre, clothes and all. And surprisingly, it could be very effective to tell until you zoom out, of course, and then like you see that it's actually crappily drawn. But that's point of the joke. So what do you need on to making this? So basically you need a painting program. A lot of free ones today nowadays, aside from Photoshop. We got Krita, that's the one I recommend the most. Or if you don't have a PC, you could use the web, you could use Photopea. It's basically Photoshop on the web. And then a way to preview your model. You could either use Unity or Blender in this case. So the process is really simple. You open your body picture of your avatar and then paint on it. And then you save it. And then you preview it on, well, Unity or Blender. In my case, it's going to be Blender. So I just paint on my painting program, see if where things align, and then save it, paste it into Unity, and then it'll update and it'll show again. And it's an iterative process. You can go bounce back and forth until you get all these seams and crevices right. In fact, these are a couple of clothes that I made with just painting with the body. You know, a nice little shirt, some pants, and even kind of like a femboyish outfit. Although I just call it comfy for me. And here's a tip whenever you're making painting with body textures, is that you basically create the illusion of death. So what you do is you pick the color underneath and then use a soft brush to tell where the edges are and then paint on top of layered look effect. As you can see, I used two different examples here, one with like just plain white and the other with red and purple. And mind you, my biggest tip here is never shade with black. It will never look good. Shade with the dark version of the color you're painting on. Okay, so another way you could do to make clothes is basically editing existing clothes. I know it's a little bit of a cheat, but here's a good example. I'm using my Christmas comforts from Illuminated VR, and it is just a sweater. And what I did is basically erase all of the sections where I wanted to look more like a shirt or a vest. And how effective could this be, right? How effective could this be? Well, I could make a bomber jacket, I could make a vest, I could make a sailor outfit. Endless possibilities. You'd be surprised how much you could get away with just painting like a skirt or pants to make it look like more like shorts. But okay, let's be real here. It's not really making clothes. If you really want to make clothes, casual or normal, because you're willing to basically go delve into more. And what you need in this section is basically really, really simple. Blender, because it's the only good 3D program out there, and a texturing program. I have two recommendations for you here. It's the one highlighted in yellow. One is Uku Paint. It's basically making Blender into Substance Painter, and 3D Code Textura, which is Substance Painter, cheaper, and also more like Photoshop. So let's dive into Blender. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Blender? Oh no! Whatever shall we do? What do you mean? This is very daunting. We have to go in there? Well, let's make it easier. Calm down. Calm down. We'll make it easier. Press Control Space on the box when you start the program. This will put you into focus mode. And the only things we need to focus is what's around the screen. Alright? Makes the UI simpler. That's just like this one. So let's make sure that you know what you're doing. So here's a quick Blender tutorial. Alright, from here on onward, I want people to take out their cameras because I will likely be skipping over some information on the slides, like this one. This is the settings that you need for the camera to work exactly like Unity's if you are working with Unity. Alright? So I'm going to give you a moment to basically take a photo. Alright, we good? Okay. Lovely. Alright, so let's get started with just Blender basics. Middle click is the way you move around the world in Blender. Basically, if you imagine there's an apple in my hand, I would middle click to just look around. It's like a little orbit. You're orbiting around the object, right? And then holding control will allow you to zoom in and out. So I'm basically moving this apple this way, front and back. And of course, whenever we hold shift, we pan. We basically move horizontal and not orbiting. Just horizontal. We're just shifting it around like this. All right. And if you're wondering if your laptop doesn't have a middle click or if your mouse is somehow 2 buttons in this generation, you can actually open up the settings in Blender to open up emulate 2-button mouse. And then the next one is first person view. We just press Control tilde. If that doesn't work, you could press Shift tilde to move. And it works exactly as you think it is if you're a gamer. WASD to move around, Shift to run, Q and E to go up and down. All right, moving along. To select, it works exactly like File Explorer or Finder for Mac. You basically left click to select one, you click and drag to select multiple, and you left click and shift to select each one individually. Now, I've added 2 other things here. Press A to select all and press Alt A to deselect all. Now, why is this important? Because you will learn that it's easy for Blender to learn. It's easy to learn Blender. It's always going to be the first letter of every shortcut or of every action. So, and pressing Alt means to clear or to reset. That's always been consistent in Blender. Alt is to reset, and the first letter of the whatever you're doing is typically what your shortcut key is. All right, now this is the very important thing to learn about Blender. Blender. It is really good stuff. Blender is easy because it's really good stuff. Now, why am I saying it's really good stuff? It's basically the keybinds for rotate, grab, and scale. So rotate really, grab good, and scale stuff. And I want you to just ingrain this in your mind. It's just really good stuff. The reason why I want you to ingrain this really good stuff is because you're going to use this everywhere in Blender, right? And if you don't remember this, I'm going to end you and your Blender cube. Okay, figuratively, but you know. And of course, with using Alt, you reset RGS. Really good stuff. So, yeah, you just reset the position. And the reason why it's G for grab, because P in Blender already means parent. So that's why it's G for grabbing. And besides, it's much more natural to get it as a grab. And congratulations! You now can play object mode and edit mode in Blender. That was pretty simple, right? All right, I'm just gonna slow down a little bit here and just make sure that you guys process it all the same and make sure that we're on good pace, right? So most of it really is just RGS. Everything else you could learn intuitively. But now we can proceed to the fun part. And I call this the fun part because we are learning Blender as we are learning techniques. We're practically using every technique to learn each part of Blender. And there's always 5 important modes: object mode, edit mode, sculpt mode, weight, and texture. So let's start with object mode. This won't be relevant, but it would be helpful to know anyway, because like this is more for the experts. But object mode is basically where you lay things out, like entire objects, and any object or any item inside the 3D view or whatever you're seeing inside Blender is considered an object. The only thing you could do with the object there is rotate, grab, and scale objects, or add new ones or delete ones. And this will be relevant for the next few slides. So we press Shift A to add new things, although we won't be using that much, and press Delete to delete stuff. Again, the start. The reason why we don't have it as A is because we already have it as Alt. Okay, so let's switch sides. You just press Tab on Blender and it will switch directly to edit mode. However, if you don't want to do that or you forget it, you could always go look in the top left corner of Blender and you could just click object mode there to switch. Oh, by the way, and it will your model will start looking like bits and dots like that in the screen. All right, so let's get started to actually making clothes. With first, body duplication, using the body of your own avatar. So the concept is really simple. We just duplicate our avatar and delete what we don't need and basically inflate it. Like, just, that's it really. It does most of the work for us. We don't have to do like the crazy things like weight painting and all of that. So the process is pretty simple. You press Shift D to duplicate and then right click to do it in place. This is the reason why I wanted you guys to like take the cameras, because I know that some of you likely won't remember this. So basically the process to duplicate in place on object mode, go to edit mode, select the things that we don't want, and then press Alt S to shrink or fatten. That will basically inflate our model to a size that we want. Now here in body duplication, or rather edit mode, there's a couple of things that you need to know in terms of terminology. You got the dots, vertices, you got the lines, edges, and you got the squares, faces, VEF, vertices, edges, and faces. Now, faces doesn't need to be 4 sides. It doesn't need to be a complete square. It could be like an octagon, or it could be like a pentagon. But it's still a face as long as it's a whole shape, right? Edges are just basic lines, and vertices are always going to be dots. Now, the process is really simple to make the clothing. Once we've duplicated and inflated and deleted what we don't need, we just basically select everything that that we want to modify, we want to remove. So in this case, we're going to learn about trail selectors. The reason why I didn't say Shift left click and Alt left click. The control is basically trail select. It goes from one point to the other point the fastest way possible. So you don't have to select everything one by one. And then proportional editing is basically this button on top that allows you to pull everything around what you're editing. So it's basically like tugging an entire piece of clothing to shape. And of course, we can't forget about mirroring, so we don't have to do the same, both sides at the same time. So you could see that on the top right screen. Okay, and you might start noticing about these little red lines when you're working. So these red lines, once you're done moving around your model and making it look more like a vest here, these red lines are basically your seams. And your seams, imagine them as like paper craft. You just unfold paper craft so you could paint on them. So once you do so, you can, well, obviously paint on them. You press U to unwrap, like Control E to bring up the edge menu. This also applies to like Control F and Control to bring out the vertices and faces. And you can mark the seam. And once you have marked all the seams, you could press U to unwrap. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to go and see the result of the unwrap. However, it's useful if you're a creator, though. So, yeah. And this is what happens once we unwrap and export the model. And we use the first technique, right? Painting on the body or painting on clothes. And what we have is actual clothing. So I made arm warmers with this technique, I made a vest, and I made pants. Congratulations, you've done some clothing. Anyway, let's slow down a little bit. Maybe that's a little bit much. And okay. So templates. Templates, we're working with assets this time. You might know this as refitting. So templates or refitting is basically using a pre-made asset and we make it fit to our avatar. That means you won't need to find clothing that basically matches your avatar. So here's a model that I've used from Sketchfab. It is a CC0 model, so everyone could use it free of charge. And what I did is go to edit mode and scale up the asset and move the arms to basically match it. Should be very quick and easy to do. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be close enough. The reason why is because sculpt mode is really good at getting this to work, right? So like you can see here, it's barely even fitting. It's barely even fitting. The clothing is barely even fitting. So this time, instead of pressing tab, you press Control Tab and go into sculpt mode. Now, the only important thing to notice about sculpt mode is these brushes underneath. And you only need 2 to learn with these brushes. So I basically posted them here. One is called Draw, and it basically adds on top whatever you are sculpting on. So like imagine like adding clay on top of the model that you're putting on. And the other is Elastic Grab. Elastic Grab basically allows you to pull and stretch and morph with your cursor. Anyways, and of course, there's technically a third brush, by the way. It's called the Smooth brush, but the shortcut for it is to just hold Shift, and it allows you to basically smooth out those sharp corners, and holding Control means to do the opposite. So like if you want to make a divot instead of adding on top. And pressing F is to pay respects, not really. It's to resize brush faces. Now, this basically allows you to resize your brush if you need to. So, before we go to the last slide over here, if you pay attention, on the draw, what I did is basically get rid of all the clipping, all of the weird things that we had on the previous slide, right? So I just added a little bit of weight in the front. And then the things that I couldn't catch, I use Elastic Grab to basically morph around the body. And if we combine that with the first method, as we talked a while ago in beginners, we could have a pretty neat result. And if you notice, I went with pants over here, I went with sweaters, and of course, just as well, the vest. Hold on, though. It's not rigged yet. And that's the problem, because then your clothing won't move along with your avatar. This is what we call weight painting. But luckily enough, there's an automatic way to weight paint. So let's learn how to make it move. So I want you to take a picture of this because it's a little bit information dense. Currently, the biggest problem right now is that your clothes doesn't have parents. Like, I know they're like a poor child being abandoned on the side. It's a quick, easy fix. While in object mode, just select all the pieces of clothing you want to link, and then select the skeleton last. Now, it looks like sticks for me, but it might look different for you. If you press Control P to parent, and then use automatic weights, it will do the weight painting for you, and it will get you at least 90% of the way there. However, sometimes, like when you go try it out and export it, it won't be good. So I'll give you another way that I personally use every day. So, in this case, we go to our armature, not armature. We go back to object mode. We select all the clothing, but then select the body last. So we could press Control L to link and transfer the mesh data. Mesh data in this case is basically the data inside the model that you're working on. We're going to select vertex groups and select source layers to all layers, and voila! You have yourself a fully working model. And that gets you 95% of the way there. In fact, sometimes you don't even need to go into the model and modify the weight paint. However, there's a problem. Sometimes you could come across with something like this. Oh no! Whatever shall I do? Clipping and wrong weight painting. Okay, I will teach you now how to weight paint. Now, weight painting is very simple. I'll think of it as like hot potato. Anything that's hot is basically whatever is influenced by the bone that you are currently selecting. When you're working with weight paint, which you switch to by using Control Tab again. In object mode, I want you to select first the skeleton, then the clothing, because this allows you to automatically select each part of the bones that you're working on. So you could also rotate them, grab them, and scale them so that it will be easier to weight paint, right? The brush settings are also the same as sculpting though, so no need to learn anything new there. And you might want to turn this option on called Auto Normalize. So basically what happens is that when you paint on the weights from one bone to the other, it will override whatever it was in the place. Because like I know like people have like a hard time on trying to weight paint and it just doesn't work. Auto Normalize will fix that. Okay, so here's what it looks like if we weight paint correctly, right? So blue means there's no influence on the bone. Red means there is influence on the bone. And you could see that it's like, if you go total red, it just follows the bone exactly. So we just want to make sure that it just follows the corners correctly. And once we're done weight painting, I mixed both the body duplication and the templates method. And we have a pretty awesome outfit, actually. And you might notice something that I've neglected to say. And it's texturing. It's painting. Now we get to actually painting in detail. Now, how do we do that? So I'm going to demonstrate with you guys using Uku Paint, but I need you guys to remember this concept of PBR. And it's basically diffuse is your basic colors, and the others are self-explanatory. Metallics being metallic, roughness is roughness, emission is basically emitting light, and normals, in this case, it's not quite obvious, but it's pointing, like it's telling where the light is pointed at. If you're working with Poyomi, you might want to invert your roughness, by the way. Like you press Control I to basically invert an image. So you get smoothness. And there's so many things you could do with PBR. You could emulate a lot of materials. Like you can emulate fabric, plastic, chrome, gold, leather, and even rubber. So let's get into the thick of things. You press N to basically bring out Uku Paint if you have it installed. And you need to make a material. Normally, if you're going to work about it in another program, you need to make the material yourself. You need to go outside of control space, but Uku Paint sets this up properly. You just press quick setup and then just press OK. And then we'll add a new layer and solid color with image mask. Now, the reason why there's a reason why press OK that I said solid color with image mask, and it's solid color with image mask. We could control the reason why what material. There's a reason why that layer that I said solid color. Yes, you can make a solid color and just work primarily with that, but you won't be able to control the type of material it is. This also applies to Substance Painter. This also applies to 3D Code. So you might want to just use masks with the color that you're using. Unless you're using gradients, then you could use normal images. All right, so here's the biggest technique that I will teach you guys, and it's using alpha masks. We do need to get out of control space here just to load up the images. It's just this little tab on the right, and you could just press load. And we're going to use this really funny cool S that I found. Okay, no, it's just a cool S on the childhood, and yeah, this cool S, we could use that as a mask. Black means no, white means yes. That's how it paints. So it basically turns into a stamp that you could use, and I use that all over the place. From like the leather texture, if you look closely on the image, there's leather texturing there. I use that to basically emulate the cracks in leather. I use the cool S to make an intricate pattern, like the one on me right now. Actually, is like right over here, and as well as buttons and the holes you put buttons through. You don't have to actually 3D model all of that. And then another one that you might want to take advantage of while you're doing detailing or texturing is that you use stroke types. Like, people say that Blender is pretty iffy to work with, but I think it's just more of finding out where things are. And in this case, I want you to pay attention to the texture tab and the stroke tab. I'm not going to explain all of this because this could be very lengthy, so take a photo. And what happens if we combine all of that? We combine the entire thing that I have just explained to you. We could make this wonderful outfit that I've created. So now you can export it in UkuPaint. It's just like a little button on the top right, and then you press Bake All, and then you could export it. You could save it. Big tip, and I think you guys might have heard this from Avatar Basics, is that you want to work in a high resolution and then bake them down to a low resolution. I personally work in 4K, and every time I bake down, it ends up to 2K, and then it goes into Unity, and I change that to 1K. All right, that's pretty much it for the casual area. This time, we're on the dedicated. Bless thy souls who walk this path, because I know how hard it is to actually work on models by yourself from scratch. Anyways, if you are being dedicated, congratulations! You're actually on your way to becoming a 3D artist. Like, seriously, this is just the path to becoming a 3D artist. But instead of a Blender donut, we're working on clothes, which is, I admit, is a lot more cooler. Now, here's a disclaimer, because the time is short, I won't be able to teach you the entire thing. However, I can get you started. If you are truly new to this, then I could recommend going with accessories first. Because the more you grasp, the more you get used to whatever you're working on, or the concepts of whatever you're working for, the easier it gets. The more faster you go. You will always start slow. Here's a tip on how to basically like level up. So you start with pins and trinkets, and then you proceed to face accessories. And you might notice I separated headwear, because sometimes us furries has like ear holes or like want to coat like, our ears in fabric. So that's why it's a little bit more advanced. The next thing is wearables, and then tight clothing, and I think the rest is self-explanatory. You got your basic clothing, clothes on top of clothes, because you have to deal with a lot of clipping, by the way, and then complete outfits. So, let's get you started. Just like in 2D, you are sketching in 3D. First, we start out with a block out. You plan out your model. So in this case, I used a lot of little spheres that I turned into blobs and used sculpt mode to get the shape that I want for this dress, right? Just to get everything started. And in fact, this is the first phase of actual sculpting. But keep it simple. Always keep it simple, because you're not making the final thing yet. You're just getting the things down. And my recommendation is always to reference. There's a lot of clothing reference. You could even take photos of yourself where the folds go, where all the details go. And 3D modeling is always an iterative process. All right? So just like this astronaut here, it starts off very simple into something much more complicated down the line, which it looks good. Don't rush. All right, time to choose your class. If you're doing 3D modeling, you might as well know the two disciplines, boxing and breaking your heart with sculpting. There's actually a reason why I say that. It's not a joke, because box modeling is pretty quick and easy. The reason it's called box modeling, because you always start with a box. Right? It's often easy, but really hard to get in shape. But once you get used to it, it's much more faster. Sculpting, however, is basically modeling it like in real life. It's often hard to actually get used to, but it is easy to get in shape. And that's why we used sculpting a while ago to get the clothes to fit. Now, let's begin with box modeling. Now, the way I tackle box modeling is that I always start up with something blocky. I always start something blocky and just get the general shape right with using extrusions. And then letting the rest done by subdivision surface and shrink wrap. So it does most of the work for me on fitting it on the body. And then after that, I apply the modifiers and then edit the model itself to get into shape. In sculpting, however, you have a lot more steps. Just like before, we start out with blobs and spheres and get into general shape first. And then we merge all of them and we use a technique called remeshing. Basically, it merges and sticks all of them, like putting clay on top of clay. And you could start smoothing and shaping. However, don't go too far. You have to keep it simple because this is not the detailing step. And you have to learn one more thing with sculpting, and it's called retopology. The reason why you have to learn retopology is because sculpts are never optimized. If you bring a sculpt in, someone will likely crash into the instance you're going into. And it needs to be game ready. So you have to learn retopo to make it low poly enough so that you could work on it into or make it work into VR chat. And here's a hidden third option that I wish I put in on casual, but then I realized it's much more complicated when it comes to steps, and it's using cloth sims. I mean, you guys seen this already, like probably those memes where it becomes like one piece of cloth that's low poly and then high poly, and then it just starts to glitch around at the end. It's the same thing. In fact, there are dedicated tools in the industry to do this, but Blender can do it also. You just find a pattern in the internet for the type of clothing that you want to do, or you could make one yourself. In this case, I did make one myself. And then I simulate, and then it all goes attached to the body as if it was actual clothing. Now, however, I wouldn't rely on this. I wouldn't rely on this because sometimes it's not reliable at all, and sometimes the level of detail is not that good, and sometimes it could proceed with weird artifacts as well. So in this case, you might want to use it as a starting point for both either sculpting or box modeling. And this is the step where I would tell you to start sculpting your folds. We call this detail sculpting. We use a modifier called multi-res to increase the resolution and then start sculpting on top of it. So like just make brush strokes to make sure that they create creases and all of the folds that we want. And then the reason why I want you to use multi-res is that you can bake this down into a normal map and then set the level to 0, and now you have your original low poly model with the detail of your high poly model. Like if you look at subdivisions 3 in the center and compare it to the top right, it's almost indistinguishable. And finally, I want you to get used to taking on different disciplines as well. And whenever you work on clothing, I want you to save that asset so you could save time. Like I know a lot of people want here to start from scratch, but seriously, a lot of clothing is already from templates that we already know of. So like if you model a shirt or a sweater, keep it, save it in your asset library. If you model a belt, save it. If you model a skirt, save it. If you model some kind of complex frilly thing that you want to probably use in the future, save it and use more than one technique, right? So in this case, like when I'm making this outfit for the carbuncle, I made a body duplicate for just the wrists and then used the box modeling for the torso and using sculpting for the shirt, the skirt, because I know like skirts are a bit hard to model in box modeling and all of that. So once you get mix and matching, or rather kit bashing in this case, you'll get your clothing out much more faster and much more easier. And one last time, as I told you, once we're done with easy, normal, and hard, we are going to finish it all together from start to finish. So we start off with the blockout. This is for the people who are basically experts and not casuals. This is you get your rough shape in. And then now we get into the basic shape. The basic shape, this could be the duplicated body of the model. It could be the templated or refit model or anything close like that, or just the sculpted model. And then you want to refine it. You want to go into edit mode and use RGS or really good stuff to mold it into place to make it actually look like the clothing that you want to. Next is that you want to move UV map. This is like the red lines that I was talking a while ago, so we could start painting on it. Now the next 3 steps over here actually could be done in any order, but I recommend this order. I want you to weight paint first, because here's the thing. If you weight paint, you'll be able to move the limbs around and like paint right underneath the crevices. Like you could go underneath the pants, you could go underneath the shoulders, you can go underneath the neck, and then you could also sculpt in the folds in those areas. Then you could texture that areas too. And once you're done with the final step, you are now ready to export. Now this is an outfit I'm gonna be coming out soon here in Forality. So if you want to check out my shop, feel free. And we could get to exporting. Now exporting could be pretty simple. This could be done with cats. It doesn't matter if you're using the unofficial one or the official one. They're both supported. You can export normally first with your avatar. So like if you want the clothes already there with your avatar, it's really easy to just export it along using the instructions that is provided to you, whatever marketplace or whatever file that the person gives you, or you export with cats, right? When you export with cats, you want to remove everything related to your avatar and only leave the clothing. And then when you export it, you can now import it into Unity, and you could do 2 things. You could do it the manual way using Avatar Assembler. The reason why I say Avatar Assembler is that so it would remove all the extra bones for you and like leave you with 1 skin mesh. Or you could do it with the modern way using VRC Fury or Modular Avatar, and it does it automatically for you. And we're done. That was a lot, right? That was a lot. And will you believe this is how many things we did in under an hour? Here's some tools that I recommend you guys to use. Feel free to take photo. I'll just say them in quick succession. Mio 3 and text tools are what I use to UV map things and bake the higher normals to a lower one. I use mesh data transfer to transfer the blend shapes, because I know some people there doesn't make their blend shapes. So if you just want to make something lazy, you could use mesh data transfer. If somehow you just need something more automatic and much more easier to work with, you could use robust weight transfer by Scent. And the rest is pretty obvious. VRC inspection and Let Me See allows you to see your models in VR. All right. Now that we're done here, you could check out these related talks if you want to learn some more. Avatar basics with Paper Fen, getting a leg up on IK, and of course, optimizing VR chat worlds with MyoP. It actually works with avatars too, so if you want to optimize your avatars, check out the optimizing worlds as well. Thank you for coming. If we have some time for some Q&A, we'll be answering some of that from the Discord right now. And of course, check out my shop as well in booth 625. Thank you. Do we have a Q&A? Do we have time?
Hi, hello. I had to be over here, or else you can't hear me.
Oh,
Yes, we actually do have
Okay.
a little bit of time for Q&A, and I'll field the questions for you. So let me go ahead and pull it up.
lovely, lovely.
Remember, if you're going to ask a question, do it in the Discord.
Mm-hmm. We can't really answer questions on Twitch, sadly. So that's why we're doing it on Discord. It's the best way we could only do right now to amalgamate all the questions into one area and pick it out.
I got a real good one for you.
Okay.
So this comes from Booster Doggo. I heard a voice in my head. Oh, okay. Control booth is talking to my brain. When it comes to blend shapes that can affect the body, how would it be able to be modified without breaking the clothing?
Without breaking the clothing. Okay, so usually what I do is that I make an entirely new blend shape. You have to go out to control space out of this one and search up the it's not blend shapes. I think it's called shape keys in Blender. So I would create a new one, a new shape key to make sure that I would be able to keep the shape of the original. So like basis is basically your main shape, and if you click on the new shape key and then press edit mode on that, or do
From Chip Tech over in the Discord. Also, all the questions will be coming from the Discord. A question that I've been trying to answer for a while. Are there better ways of having multiple textures on the same piece of clothing? Every option I know of has their own problems. Is there a right way to do it?
There is no right way, unfortunately. Like, I've seen people do patterns. I've seen people do the way I did that I explained in this talk to do multiple textures. I've seen people use multiple. I think it's CG textures, not CG materials. So if you need some variety, you could use that, and then you could mask that out to whatever you want.
Have you been to any of the meetups yet?
Oh, awesome. I am guilty of being in the I accidentally have way too many materials gang. It wasn't until I learned about atlasing to just squish all of that into a single 4K that I was. It was painful to be in the room with me. So we have.
You just talk. The Fox portal, then.
I'm gonna have to pull that one up. By the way, are all of your talks on your YouTube?
All of my talks is not on YouTube. Actually, it is on YouTube, but it's not on my YouTube. All of my talks is easily available in Plurality's YouTube. It takes them a bit of time to process all the footage, make some edits, make sure that they're easy to process and easy to look at.
Yeah!
Okay. Hey.
Hi! You made it!
Yeah.
Okay. Did you find the friends thing, or did you just like randomly join?
No, I can see where you are from the friends thing.
Cool, okay. I'm glad it's working.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, completely random, but it's funny random. If you
Okay.
or someone you know
Without resorting
is
to alpha
stuck
clip,
down this pit down
UV
here,
shifting, or
like
blend
this guy's
shapes,
gra-
are there any
demonstrate. If they fall
techniques
down
in
here,
Blender to get
right?
clothes
If y'all are
to
stuck down
not
here,
clip through the
use this
skin
gear
and
thing
layers?
and just spacebar jump your way up.
Okay, so there's only
okay.
two ways you could do this.
I
You
fell
could
down
do
there a
it
few
with
times
most,
after all my excitement,
like
so I
most
just figured
people
just to
in
share the knowledge.
metaverses,
Just
where
to
they
help
do
someone else
use body blend shapes
Gonna
to
get the affordable
basically
ones.
shrink
This
the
is
body
crazy.
of the avatar just to make sure that it doesn't clip. Like, it'll be as thin as a string, but to anyone looking from the outside, it looks like you're wearing it. The other is unfortunately adding more geometry to the area where it's clipping. You need to like add more weight, not weight, like vertices, edges, and faces in that specific area, because like a lot of these problem areas is where it folds, and sometimes this is the reason why when you look at a model, suddenly it's much more denser in the elbows, in the shoulders, in the waist, in the hips. That's because of why, because they need to bend that way. So do your best to actually mimic your base avatar's cuts and folds so that it would move along. Otherwise, you might just have to just use the blend shape method. Personally, I think the blend shape method is just much more easier anyway.
It's definitely something that I've seen a lot of people do. Some people also do the destructive method of removing the underlying mesh, but it's a little bit more of a pain.
That is a bit more pain, but is much more optimized, and I recommend you do it if you have if you're doing several models already. So like if you have like a base model and then you have another model avatar that has just clothing on and just already insides cut up, and that's what I personally use for virality. Right.
There was also some people that were in the Twitch that were trying to shout, "Oh yeah, here we go! They're gonna mention the robust weight transfer." That's an option.
So it's really funny. It's really funny how I know that robust weight transfer is an easy tool, but I also remind you that I want you guys to learn how it first works before you use a tool like that, because the more you learn the basics,
Wishstream, thank you very much for coming out. Everybody is like lit up and just absolutely loves this talk. Like they cannot wait to see this uploaded. And from the team, from myself, and from everybody on the crowd, thank you very, very much for taking the time out to
and I
come
can't
chat with us
wait
today.
what you guys come up with. Please don't feel free to contact me on my socials, and feel free to check out my booth here in Ferality, booth 625. Thank you guys so much.
He said it was an experiment.
Okay. Don't even know.
I don't know. Oh wait, Cracker bread?
Yeah, the really hard bread.
Yeah. Oh, wait, listen. Say it again. No, you super say it. What bread was it?
Oh, cracker bread.
Cracker bread.
Give it in.
The souls appear and disappear on it.
Yeah.
But guess what this is for? Okay, but I will be going because they are leaving. Alright, bye, Suka! Make sure we Cinco de Mayo, but it's multiple events. Cinco de Mayo is one of them. No? You guys the other two? It's only us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do either. There's not really a lot of fun stuff today other than, like, I looked at the schedule.
You're beautiful. You're beautiful. And you're giving me a blep. This model, I noticed, has kind of a surprise, speaking of bleps. This model has kind of a surprise, speaking of bleps, because it has... It's maybe a little excessive as far as the blep goes. By which I mean...
Oh my
gosh. Yeah.
You have a control. You have a control for it. Oh my gosh.
Someone keeps messaging me. Post footage. They said they might not be able to get on today.
Eventually, I started digging further into the community, volunteering more, seeing more cons, and seeing the community repeatedly uplift each other and empower those around them in the face of adversity. Always wanting to try and do more to give some semblance of comfort and security to disadvantaged and marginalized groups. The whole time I had the Ferality team in the back of my head, and it was actually this charity panel last year that really gave me the push to finally go for it. I really couldn't be happier to be here, promoting a cause like the Center with this fantastic team, and with all of you beings who have already given so much to the cause.
Hello, hello. I am the Food Man, known as Foodie Foodman, or that guy with the Furbies. It is an honor to have been brought into the charity team here to work with all these lovely folks and support the Center Orlando this year. The Center Orlando to me is a critically important part of Orlando, Florida, and it dropped my heart to the floor hearing about the damages they suffered from the storms that tore through Florida during late 2024. After speaking with several key members of the Center Orlando, like George Wallace, Amanda Spradlin, Nicole Parker, I got to hear some of their stories of community members finding comfort, acceptance, and a safe space they can call a home away from home at the Center. With all the community outreach resources ranging from testing supplies to food assistance with the Pride Pantry, and the welcoming staff that are available to help, I am overjoyed that we get one more chance to help them this year.
Hello everyone, my name is Velbo, otherwise known as Vel. I've been part of the community for almost 10 years now, thanks to a game us millennials might remember as